Watching DD India News Hour, India's Voice to the World. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Coming up in the next hour. Donald Trump names former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe to head the CIA. Fox News host Pete to be the Secretary of Defense. Washington says Israel not violating US law on aid to Gaza, signaling it will not limit arms transfers. Saudi Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud arrives in India to meet Indian counterpart EAM Jaishankar today. Red alert for global climate. CO2 emissions set to total 41.6 billion metric tons in 2024, up from 40.6 billion tons last year. US President-elect Donald Trump named more of his incoming team on Tuesday, including seasoned figures and hardliners. His administration is taking shape one name at a time. Donald Trump announced his former Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, to lead the Central Intelligence Agency. Ratcliffe, a close ally of Trump, served as Director of National Intelligence at the end of his first term. Ratcliffe was confirmed as the nation's top spy in May 2020, 8 months before Trump left office. While Trump has also said he will nominate Fox News channel host Pete Hegseth to be Secretary of Defense. Hegseth is an Army National Guard veteran and, according to his website, served in Afghanistan, Iraq and Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Trump also announced Mike Huckabee as U.S. ambassador to Israel under his incoming administration, putting a stalwart supporter of that country's government in a key role. And in the latest, US President-elect Donald Trump has said that he will nominate South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem to be the Homeland Security Secretary, and Elon Musk and former Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy will lead the Department of Government Efficiency. Earlier on Monday, the US President-elect chose Susie Wiles and Ton Homan as part of his administration, Elise Stefanik as his envoy to the UN, and Lee Zeldin as the administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency. Reports also suggested that he had zeroed in on Marco Rubio as Secretary of State and Mike Waltz as NSA. This report is a fact box of who's who and who's likely to get what.
US President-elect Donald Trump has begun choosing his cabinet and other high-ranking administration officials. Among the early picks and top contenders for some of the key posts overseeing defense, intelligence, diplomacy, trade, immigration, and economic policymaking. Wiles, one of his two campaign managers, will be his White House chief of staff. Supporters hope she will instill a sense of order and discipline that was apparently lacking during Trump's first term. The former acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Tom Homan, will be in charge of the country's border. Trump said Homan will be in charge of the nation's border, including but not limited to the southern border, the northern border, all maritime, and aviation security, including the deportation of immigrants in the US illegally. Trump announced on Monday that Elise Stefanik, a Republican congresswoman and staunch supporter, would be his ambassador to the United Nations. The 40-year-old representative from New York State became a key Republican when she was elected to the White House, replacing Liz Cheney, who was ousted for criticizing Trump's claims of election fraud. Trump also announced on Monday that former Congressman Lee Zeldin would be his administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency. Zeldin has accepted the role. Zeldin, who is 44, is a staunch Trump ally and hails from New York. He would play a key role in implementing Trump's stated position on overhauling U.S. energy policy to maximize record-high oil and gas production by rolling back regulations. Apart from these appointments, there are several names doing the rounds as potential contenders for key posts. Some major news networks have reported so far. Marco Rubio has been tapped for Secretary of State. Rubio is a U.S. Senator from Florida and is also top Secretary of State contender. His policies closely align with those of Trump. He has long been involved in foreign affairs in the Senate and is an important Latino voice.
Because together with Donald Trump, we are going to make America not just great, but greater than it has ever been before.
It has also been reported that Mike Waltz has been picked as the National Security Advisor. A former Marine, Waltz has established himself as one of the foremost China hawks. Among the various China-related bills he has co-sponsored are measures designed to lessen U.S. reliance on critical minerals mined in China. There are 4 contenders for the post of Treasury Secretary. Scott Bessent is a long-time hedge fund investor who taught at Yale University for several years. John Paulson is a billionaire hedge fund manager and a major Trump donor. He had told associates that he would be interested in the job. He is a long-time proponent of tax cuts and deregulation. Larry Kudlow served as the director of the National Economic Council. Now, he's an outsider shot because publicly he and Trump advocate the same tax policies. Robert Lighthizer had served as U.S. Trade Representative for most of the Trump's first term and is certain to be invited back for either of the top jobs at the Treasury or the Department of Commerce. Linda McMahon, a former Small Business Administration Director, is seen as the front-runner to lead Trump's Department of Commerce. McMahon is the co-founder and former CEO of the professional wrestling franchise WWE. Mike Lee, a U.S. Senator from Utah, is widely seen as another top candidate for Attorney General. Like Vance, he was an initial skeptic but later became an unwavering ally, and he's now seen as an intellectual hero among Trump's supporters. Supporters also keenly watching to see what roles Trump would assign to key faces on the campaign: Viveka Ramaswamy, Tulsi Gabbard, Robert Kennedy Jr., and Elon Musk, called in social media circles as the Avengers. Bureau Report, DD India.
The judge overseeing U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's criminal hush money case has put off ruling on whether his conviction should be thrown out on immunity grounds, enabling prosecutors to weigh next steps following his election victory. Justice Ivan Marchand was due to rule on Tuesday on Trump's argument that the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in July that presidents are immune from prosecution involving their official acts meant that New York State case should be dismissed. Instead, Marchand granted a request by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office to have until November 19 to consider how to approach the case in light of Trump's looming inauguration in January 2025, email correspondence made public on Tuesday showed. Trump's scheduled November 26 sentencing is now widely expected to be postponed. Meanwhile, Trump's presidential rival and U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris returned to White House on Tuesday after running a 107-day hectic campaign that raised more than $1 billion after President Biden stepped aside in July 21st due to concern about his mental acuity, and she thanked them all amid thunderous cheer and crowd lined on the sides of the road. Hundreds of the White House staffers greeted Vice President Kamala Harris with chants of MVP Tuesday as she returned to the executive complex for the first time since losing last week's presidential election to Donald Trump. The widely known acronym for Most Valuable Player was apparently repurposed by Democratic loyalists to pay tribute to the 60-year-old's honorary title as Madam Vice President. Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto met with U.S. President Joe Biden at the White House, pledging strong cooperation with the U.S. The two leaders discussed critical issues including climate change, West Asia conflict, and South China Sea tensions. President Prabowo also spoke to U.S. President-elect Donald Trump by phone, offering personal congratulations and expressing willingness to meet him in person. Trump, in response, praised Prabowo's leadership and American training.
I will work very hard to strengthen Indonesian-United States relationship, and I would like to work towards this end, that we have a strong cooperation. Once again, President Biden, thank you very much for
thank you. Look forward to our discussion.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The United States on Tuesday banned all civilian flights to Haiti for a month, a day after 3 jetliners departing from its capital, Port-au-Prince, were hit by gunfire. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration's move came after Spirit Airlines jetliner arriving from Florida in Port-au-Prince was hit by gunfire and had to reroute to the Dominican Republic. A flight attendant suffered minor injuries, and images posted online appear to show several bullet holes inside the plane. Two planes that left the Haitian capital Monday were also hit. Prime Minister Alex Didier Fils-Aimé was sworn in Monday, replacing outgoing Premier Gary Conille, who was appointed in May. The United States on Tuesday called on Haiti's leaders to put personal interests aside and concentrate on getting the country back on its feet. The United States has said that Israel was not violating U.S. law on allowing assistance into Gaza, but has called for further progress. The remarks came a month after Washington warned Israel of potential halt to military support. In a letter, the Biden government had voiced concerns over the humanitarian situation in Gaza, setting a deadline of November 13 to comply with U.S. law on permitting humanitarian assistance.
We are constantly assessing and evaluating, and if we do not see consistent progress, if we do not see the results on the ground, then we will, of course, make appropriate assessments about their compliance with international law and compliance with U.S. law, and that'll continue to be the case. The overall humanitarian situation in Gaza continues to remain unsatisfactory, but in the context of the letter, it's not about whether we find something satisfactory or not. It's that what are the actions that we're seeing? These actions that we have seen, we think that these are steps in the right direction. We want to see more steps. We want to see these steps sustained over a significant period of time.
In another development, Israel has claimed to dismantle Hezbollah's weapons and missile facilities, which it said were located under Beirut's southern suburbs of Dania. The Israeli army published a video showing aerial footage of strikes on various buildings. The military said it operates according to precise intelligence, and this followed an Israeli military warning to locals to evacuate the area ahead of an airstrike against Hezbollah assets. Recently, Israel has intensified airstrikes on Lebanon's south and on Beirut, while Hezbollah has ramped up daily rocket and drone attacks against Israel. In a video message to Iranians, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's government feared its own citizens more than Israel, urging them to imagine a free future.
The world has seen but a fraction of our power. Yet there is one thing Khamenei's regime fears more than Israel. You know what it is? It's you, the people of Iran. That's why they spend so much time and money trying to crush your hopes and curb your dreams. Well, I say to you this: don't let your dreams die. I hear your whispers. Women, life, freedom. Zan, Zandagi, Azadi. Don't lose hope, and know that Israel and others in the free world stand with you.
In some other news from Iran, UN atomic watchdog chief Rafael Grossi arrives in Tehran for crunch talks over its nuclear program on Wednesday. The International Atomic Energy Agency head has for months sought progress with Iran on issues including a push for more monitoring cooperation at nuclear sites and an explanation of uranium traces found at undeclared sites. Iran has stepped up nuclear activity since 2019 after Trump, during his first term, abandoned a 2015 deal Iran had reached with world powers, under which, if curbed enrichment and restored tough U.S. sanctions on the Islamic Republic. Iran's work on enrichment has been seen by the West as a disguised effort to develop nuclear weapons capability. And still to come on DD India News Hour. First phase of Jharkhand Assembly polls underway. Amidst political upheaval, Germany to hold snap elections soon after the collapse of Chancellor Olaf Scholz's three-party coalition. Deadly wildfires spread in New York, New Jersey. Health warnings issued in several areas.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj, and voting is underway in the eastern Indian state of Jharkhand across 43 constituencies. Polling, which began at 7 a.m., will conclude by 5 p.m. local time. 15,344 polling booths have been set up, with over 13.7 million voters eligible to exercise their right to vote. While polling will be until 4 p.m. IST at 950 sensitive booths spread over 31 constituencies. More than 200 security companies are on duty to ensure a smooth voting process. The second phase of polling will be held on 20th of November, while votes will be counted on 23rd of November. Prime Minister Narendra Modi urged voters to exercise their franchise and strengthen the festival of democracy. In Sri Lanka, preparations for the 14th of November parliamentary election are underway as the island nation prepares to vote for 225 members to the parliament. Polling will be held on Thursday between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. local time at over 13,400 polling stations. Counting of votes will begin at 4:15 p.m. with postal ballots first and ballot boxes after they are shifted to the counting centers. And DD India's Ahmed Muin Farooqi joins us from Colombo to give us more details on what's happening in Sri Lanka. Hi, Dr. Farooqi. Litmus test, in fact, for Dissanayake. Silent period is on. Take us through the preparations ahead of the polls.
Siddharth, yes, you mentioned rightly with regard to the kind of elections that we are having right now. It's a litmus test for the ruling NPP as well as President Anura Kumara Dissanayake, because they had only 3 seats in the previous parliament, which the president had dissolved one day after assuming his office as the president in September this year. Now they will be looking forward to getting as many seats as possible. In fact, they're looking at a possibility of getting a majority as well this time around, which is minimum of 113 seats. Yesterday, the Election Commission has mentioned that all preparations have been put in place for the election that will be held tomorrow from 7 a.m. till 4 p.m. There are 13,421 polling centers across the island. In fact, if you look at the buses behind me, these are the individual buses. From the counting centers, they will be taking the ballot boxes to each of the polling centers across the island. Okay. And I'm very close to the counting center here in Colombo, the Royal College. And there are 22 electoral districts, and each district has dedicated counting centers. Now, the Election Commission has also said that over 70,000 personnel from the police as well as other security forces will be deployed. Okay. The DIG of Sri Lanka Police as well as the police official spokesperson has said that in addition to the police, around 11,000 army personnel will also be deployed for the entire task of ensuring law and order as well as the smooth conduct of the elections tomorrow and for the counting process day after tomorrow. It's at the same time also important to mention that today the schools which are run by the government have been declared holiday, because many of the schools are polling centers themselves. So a lot of preparations are underway. It's at the same time I also want to mention that the government offices as well as the private offices have also been told that leaves, if required and wherever possible, have to be provided to each of the government officials as well as the private employees as well, just to ensure that the voter participation is at the maximum. We also remember that postal voting was held on 30th of October and 1st and 4th of November, as well as on spare days of 7th and 8th of November. There were about 730,000 government employees who were eligible for postal voting. And a good number have already voted, more than 90% have voted. So it needs to be seen how much of voter participation will be there in tomorrow's election, which will be a litmus test, which will be a very, very crucial one for the government to ensure majority and for smooth running of the government in the next 5 years.
Definitely, Dr. Farooqui, a litmus test for Anurag Kumara Dissanayake. But you've had a word with people there. What are they saying? What are their expectations from these elections? What do they want? Why they are saying they'll go to vote?
Siddharth, you see, the 2022's peak of the economic crisis was something which has completely changed the dynamics here, the political landscape, the political dynamics in Sri Lanka. And that was visible in the manner that people had come out in an aggressive manner during the Aragalaya protest.
Yeah.
It was also visible in the presidential elections when people talked about changing the political landscape in the manner of voting out the old guard and bringing in a radical change. And that was how a party which had secured just about 3% of the votes in 2019 elections, the National People's Power, they secured a resounding victory, although they did not cross the 50% majority mark, but Anurag Kumara Dissanayake of NPP won the elections in September. And now people have been talking about the same ideas that for the government to implement their promises and to take forward the economic reforms which President had promised during his campaign. They will need majority in the parliament, and they have been talking about how NPP can bring about the changes which they have talked about, like reducing the taxations as well as making things easier for the common man by even making the tariffs like electricity as well as fuel prices cheaper. And this is something which people have been looking forward to, and they want to give an opportunity for the current government, the new government, to probably take these policies further ahead.
Definitely. By what you're saying, I can make out that inflation is a major issue, and apart from that, they want to see a change in the government. This time around, when the results will be out, what are the odds that Dissanayake will be again remain in power?
You see, Dissanayake has secured his victory in September this year, and he will be in power as the president for the next 5 years. However, the parliament will basically, the parliament which comprises 225 members, they will be the ones who will be elected this time. 8,800 plus candidates are in the fray for the 225 seats, which includes 196 electoral district seats and 29 the national list, which is a nominated kind of a list based on the percentage of the votes that the party is secured. So what is being anticipated from many quarters and many experts is that NPP will be able to muster numbers more than 100. But exact number nobody is yet to bring out. There are no opinion polls here. However, surveys indicate that it's going to be a tough battle for NPP in key areas, and which is why President Dissanayake has been wooing voters during his campaign for the parliamentary elections in these areas where he did not muster support in the presidential election. Key areas were north as well as the upcountry. The northern area, which comprises Jaffna, Vavonia, the Vanni, and so these areas have been key for him to ensure that he secures majority in these elections. However, the southern part had already voted for NPP in the presidential elections, and he hopes that they will be able to get even the floating, the bench vote, which could go from to any party. So this is something which the NPP is expecting. However, the opposition parties are saying that they have the experience and expertise to run the parliament. Running the government will be something else, and running the legislative body, the parliament, is something else which requires considerable experience and expertise, and the opposition members are saying that they have that already. As NPP, most of the candidates are first-timers this time around. Siddharth.
Definitely. It will be a litmus test for Anurag Kumara Dissanayake, and also he'll be in power. But the thing is, what will happen in the parliament, that remains to be seen. But thank you so much for this wonderful analysis, Dr. Ahmed Moeen Farooqui. We leave it there. In a major political shake-up, Germany is set to hold snap elections on February 23rd after the collapse of Chancellor Olaf Scholz's three-party coalition last week. The country's two biggest parties agreed on an early timetable, which will see centre-left leader Scholz seek a vote of confidence on December 16. The election date represents a compromise between the conservative opposition, which pushed for a January vote to avoid leaving Germany without clear leadership. Scholz is expected to lose the vote of confidence, after which President Frank-Walter Steinmeier will have 21 days to dissolve the Bundestag or lower house of parliament. Elections would have to be held within the next 60 days. German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier has approved the timeline for early elections agreed by Germany's main parties, saying the plan to hold the vote is realistic. The head of state urged all mainstream parties to cooperate responsibly until then. In Dakar, activists from Senegal's ruling PASTEF party rallied ahead of Sunday's legislative elections. Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko urged peace despite having previously called for retribution after opposition attacks on PASTEF supporters. Fellow supporter Mohamed Diom demanded justice, reflecting widespread frustration. This election comes after President Bassirou Diomaye Faye dissolved the opposition-led parliament in September, with the PASTEF party now aiming to secure majority. Their platform focuses on social justice, economic reform and anti-corruption efforts. These elections could shift the political landscape in Senegal as voters weigh in on these pivotal promises. And in a latest warning from COP29 summit in Baku, global CO2 emissions are set to hit record high in 2024. This will include emissions from burning fossil fuels other than industrial activities from low-tech devices. The Global Carbon Budget report published during the UN's COP29 climate summit in Azerbaijan said global CO2 emissions are set to total 41.6 billion metric tons in 2024, up from 40.6 billion tons last year. The bulk of these emissions are from burning coal, oil and gas. Those emissions would total 37.4 billion tons in 2024, up by 0.8% in 2023, the report said. The rest are from land use, a category that includes deforestation and forest fires. The report by more than 80 institutions was led by the University of Exeter in Britain. Such emissions increase will pull the world further off course from averting more destructive climate extremes, scientists said on Wednesday. Flood-hit areas near the eastern city of Valencia were rushing on Tuesday to clear drainage systems while they prepare for another potential powerful storm. The National Weather Service issued an orange alert for strong or torrential rains 2 weeks after the worst floods in Spain that killed over 200 people. Valencia's emergency committee issued a special warning to municipalities and organizations requesting them to adopt preventive measures, including closing schools. The committee also recommended people to work remotely and avoid non-essential travel and follow emergency service updates. The weather alert includes much of the Mediterranean coast of Catalonia and Valencia, and also Andalusia and Balearic Islands. Fire crews in the United States are working to contain large blazes in the northeastern states of New York and New Jersey, where heavy smoke-filled air has prompted health warnings in several areas. The Jennings Creek wildfire has already torched some 2,023 hectares across the two states, killed a New York Parks employee and threatened dozens of structures. Officials said containment efforts are evenly divided between New York and New Jersey, noting that overnight rainfall provided a much-needed break for firefighting crews. Meanwhile, in California, gusty winds threaten to intensify a major wildfire, adding to the challenges for firefighters. A major eruption took place at the Cajual mud volcano, also known as the El Aburrido, in Colombia on Monday, producing a very large fireball and injuring 8 people. Drone footage showed the damage due to the eruption. The volcano has impacted several communities, with 109 families living near the volcano and along nearby roads reporting damage to homes. As part of the immediate response, officials have begun evacuating 16 families, including 30 children, from impacted areas to schools in Manta Gorda and Santiago de Uraba. In Los Mangos, authorities have also temporarily relocated 35 children to a local school to ensure their safety. And still to come on DD Indian News App. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to travel to Nigeria, Brazil and Guyana from 16 to 21st of November. Will attend Rio G20 Summit on 18 and 19th of November. India displays the finest fabrics and textile expertise at the 18th International Apparel and Textile Fair in Dubai. The 5th edition of military exercise between militaries of India and Vietnam, Windbacks 2024, is underway at Ambala. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj, and a quick recap of headlines. Donald Trump names former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe to head the CIA. Fox News host Pete Hegseth to be the Secretary of Defense. Washington says Israel not violating US law on aid to Gaza, signaling it will not limit arms transfers. Saudi Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud arrives in India to meet Indian counterpart S. Jaishankar today. Red alert for global climate. CO2 emissions set to total 41.6 billion metric tons in 2024, up from 40.6 billion tons last year. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be visiting Nigeria, Brazil and Guyana from 16 to 21st of November 2024. Prime Minister will visit Nigeria from 16th to 17th November 2024. This will be the first visit by Prime Minister of India to Nigeria in 17 years. During the visit, Prime Minister will hold talks to review the strategic partnership between India and Nigeria and discuss further avenues to enhance the bilateral relationship. He will also address a gathering of Indian community in Nigeria. Prime Minister will travel to Rio de Janeiro during 18th to 19th of November 2024 to attend the G20 summit. India is part of the G20 Troika along with Brazil and South Africa and has been actively contributing to the ongoing G20 summit discussions. During the summit, Prime Minister will put forward India's positions on various issues of global importance and build on the outcomes from G20 New Delhi Leaders Declaration and Voice of Global South summits, which were hosted by India in the past 2 years. Prime Minister will visit Guyana from 19 to 21st of November 2024. The visit to Guyana will be the first by an Indian Prime Minister since 1968. During the visit, Prime Minister will hold discussions with President Ali, meet other senior leaders of Guyana, address the Parliament of Guyana and address a gathering of Indian diaspora. In Georgetown, Guyana, Prime Minister will also participate in the second CARICOM India Summit and hold meetings with leaders of CARICOM members countries to further enhance India's long-standing friendship with the region. Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud will hold talks with External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar on Wednesday. During the visit, he will co-chair the second meeting of the Political Security, Social and Cultural Committee of the India-Saudi Arabia Strategic Partnership Council. This visit will provide further impetus to the multifaceted India-Saudi bilateral ties. The SPC was established in 2019 following Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Saudi Arabia in October of that year. Saudi Foreign Minister arrived on Tuesday in New Delhi for a 2-day official visit to India. India's Defence Research and Development Organization conducted the maiden flight test of long-range land attack cruise missile on Tuesday. Missile with range of 1,000 kilometers was test fired from a mobile articulated launcher at the integrated test range in Chandipur, Odisha. According to statement from the Ministry of Defence, the LRLACM demonstrated precise waypoint navigation, performing complex maneuvers at varied altitudes and speeds. It added that test proved the capability of its advanced avionics and software systems. The missile is designed for versatility, capable of being launched from both land-based platforms and naval vessels. It utilizes a universal vertical launch module which is also compatible with the BrahMos missile system, thereby enhancing its operational flexibility. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has congratulated DRDO, Armed Forces and Industry on successful maiden flight test of LRLACM. He has said that the test paves way for future indigenous cruise missile development programs. Rajnath Singh calls for adopting a collaborative approach to deal with contemporary problems at the first edition of Delhi Defence Dialogue. The Defence Minister highlighted the progress India is making in defence exports and believes India holds potential to be the drone capital of the world. DD India's Anil Thomas has the details.
The Delhi Defence Dialogue started with its first edition. Addressing the inaugural session, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has stressed that the government is creating adaptive defence in India to deal with emerging challenges. Adaptive defence is not merely a strategic choice, but a necessity.
Adaptive defence can only become a reality when it is also a reflection of the collaborative defence. This event will help us analyze aspects of the jointness and integration as part of the proceedings.
The Delhi Defence Dialogue theme is adaptive defence, navigating the changing landscape of modern warfare. The Defence Minister lauded the transformative changes the sector is going with defence export to over 100 nations, with the top 3 destinations for defence export in 2023-2024.
India is already exporting defence items to over 100 nations, with the top 3 destinations for defence exports in 2023-24 being the USA, France and Armenia. We hope to achieve the target of rupees 50,000 crores worth of defence export by 2029-30. The publication of the multiple positive indigenization list further emphasizes the government's commitment towards self-reliance. These lists include numerous defence items that will no longer be imported, thereby encouraging their domestic production.
The Delhi Defence Dialogue is a flagship platform of MP IDSA for addressing the multifaceted challenges of defence and security in India. As the landscape of warfare becomes increasingly complex, the platform is designed to discuss the evolving landscape of international security and defence strategies, with a focus on India's defence. With Anil Thomas in New Delhi, Syed Afsarul Hassan for DD India.
The 5th edition of military exercise between the militaries of India and Vietnam, Windbacks 24, is currently underway at Ambala. The troops of Indian Army and Vietnam People's Army are being trained on employment and deployment of engineer company and a medical team in UN mission. With enhanced scope of the exercise in this edition, the Air Force personnel from both sides interacted and shared best practices on employment of air assets in the rehabilitation efforts at the UN mission. The contingent witnessed employment of Advanced Light Helicopter or ALH and Chinook in various engineer support tasks. And let's take a look at other stories making news. In a significant milestone for India's defence sector, the Indian Army has made substantial progress in the phased induction of Project Akash Tir, an advanced air defence system aimed at modernising India's defence framework. The initiative is designed to create a responsive and resilient air defence network prepared to meet emerging aerial threats with agility and precision. In a landmark decision, India's Home Ministry has approved Central Industrial Security Force's first ever all-women battalion promoting gender equality. Preparations have been started for the early recruitment, training and selection of a location for the headquarters of the new battalion. The decision will encourage aspiring women to join CISF's mission to serve the nation and safeguard national strategic assets. A dense layer of smog enveloped Delhi, Noida, Ghaziabad and other parts of National Capital Region on Wednesday morning, causing a significant drop in visibility. According to Central Pollution Control Board, the air quality index continues to be in the very poor category. The smog, combined with shallow to moderate fog and mist, led to reduced visibility during the morning hours. The customs officers at New Delhi's IGI airport arrested a man for smuggling of narcotic substance suspected to be heroin from Bangkok via Kuala Lumpur. During baggage search, 7.321 kilograms of the suspected narcotic packed in 7 green polythene packets was found in his trolley bag. Diagnostic test confirmed the substance, suspected to contain heroin with an estimated value of rupees 29.28 crore. Further investigation is under process. India is showcasing its finest waves at the 18th International Apparel and Textile Fair in Dubai, presenting a wide array of high-quality fabrics and unmatched textile expertise. With a strong delegation of manufacturers, designers and artisans, the country highlighted its rich heritage and modern capabilities in textile production. India's textile industry holds immense economic significance, contributing 2% to the country's GDP and making it third largest textile exporter globally. The sector is a major employer with over 45 million people in the workforce, largely powered by women. The fair serves as a hub for trend-setting and sourcing excellence, shaping the style landscape of the Gulf region. The biannual 3-day fair will conclude on November 14th.
This is the International Apparels and Textile Fair, Dubai, which is a very good platform for the MSME companies based out of India, because this is giving a platform to get new customers and a base for textile exports. We are seeing a very good opportunity that a lot of buyers are coming from all over the region, from Western Europe, Russia and Africa. So there is a boost that we are able to, that our companies like us are able to cater to these new markets which are very nascent, and a huge opportunity is awaiting for the factories like us which are in MSME to get new orders, new market and opportunity and surely new experience.
British author Samantha Harvey has won the 2024 Booker Prize, one of literature's highest honours, for her novel Orbital. The story follows a tense 24-hour for 6 astronauts from around the world aboard the International Space Station, exploring themes of loss, desire and the climate crisis. Harvey's work stood out to judges, who unanimously awarded her the prize for its unique perspective and emotional depth. Along with the award, she received a substantial cash prize, which she plans to use for a new bicycle and a trip to Japan, a country close to her heart after having lived there. This win cements Harvey's place among English literature's most acclaimed voices. Massachusetts Air National Guard member Jack Teixeira was sentenced to 15 years in prison after pleading guilty to leaking highly classified military documents. The 22-year-old's actions, described by prosecutors as one of the most significant breaches of the Espionage Act, involved sharing sensitive national defense details, including intelligence on Russia-Ukraine war, with a group of Discord. Despite warnings from superiors, Teixeira, a low-ranking cyber defense specialist, repeatedly accessed and posted information on global security, defying orders. Prosecutors revealed he bragged about access to intelligence on Israel, Syria and China. His defense argued Teixeira was an isolated young man who acted out of curiosity, not malice. Nevertheless, Judge Indra Talwani handed down the substantial sentence on Tuesday.
Today, Jack Teixeira was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for violating the oath every one of us in public service takes to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Jack Teixeira abused his position of trust, and he exploited his top-secret clearance to access hundreds of classified top-secret information and then share them on Discord, a social media gaming platform that reaches over 150 million people across the globe.
And still to come on DD Indian News Hour. The value of world's biggest cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, hits record high after Republicans' victory. India worry about depth while South Africa look to break spin stranglehold at the third T20. And in Vietnam, 5-tone musical ensemble performance held in Sok Trong province.
This week on Defense Dynamics, we will talk about Indian Navy's growing power as India's President Draupadi Murmu reviews naval preparedness from INS Vikrant, India's first indigenous aircraft carrier. We will tell you why India's long-range anti-ship ballistic missile will prove to be a game-changer in geopolitics of the Indian Ocean. Lastly in the show, we'll bring to you why the Russian Tu-160M bomber could play a pivotal role in strategic dominance during any conflict. Watch Defense Dynamics every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. IST only on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. And the price of Bitcoin has neared $90,000 for the first time ever after Donald Trump's decisive victory in the US election last week. It comes as Republicans are edging closer to overall control of Congress after having already secured the presidency and majority in the Senate. The value of world's biggest cryptocurrency has now risen by more than 80% of this year. Other cryptocurrencies, including Dogecoin, are also making gains, which has been prompted by Trump supporter Elon Musk. In the run-up to the election, Trump said he would create a strategic Bitcoin stockpile and appoint digital asset-friendly financial regulators, spurring expectations that he would strip back regulations on the crypto industry. Major Wall Street indices closed lower on Tuesday as investors booked some profits from post-election rally and turned cautious ahead of US economic data due this week. Three major indexes has rallied to record highs since the November 5 US election as investors bet on a boost to equities or from Trump's proposed tax cuts and the prospect of easier regulatory policies. But investor enthusiasm was dampened on Tuesday. European shares lost 2% as European Central Bank policymakers warned that increased tariffs from Trump would hamper global growth. The S&P 500 lost 0.29%, while Nasdaq Composite lost 0.09%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 0.86%. Argentina's inflation rate has dipped below 200% for the first time in nearly a year, hitting 193%, a milestone credited to President Javier Milei's intense austerity measures. According to the INDEC, monthly inflation in October eased to 2.7%, its lowest since 2021, down from 3.5% in September. While rent and utilities drove price increases at 5.4%, essentials like food and transport saw a modest 1.2% rise. However, the cost of this progress is high. Sweeping cuts in public spending, reduced subsidies and public sector layoffs have pushed more than half of Argentines into poverty, leaving many struggling stretch their incomes. Let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. 24-year-old Irish student Olivia Humphreys was awarded on the International James Dyson Award 2024 for her device Athena, a prototype for a portable chemotherapy scalp cooling device to help cancer sufferers keep their hair. This innovative concept was motivated by Humphreys' mother's experience with chemotherapy and scalp cooling treatment. The device is utilizing low-cost thermoelectric components to cool water that circulates around the scalp, and it's lightweight as well as portable. Sao Paulo Zoo unveiled a new exhibit site for the endangered Spix macaws known as the Little Blue Macaw. The sanctuary aims to aid their recovery and eventual reintroduction into the wild. There are about 330 birds Spix's macaws in the world, 85 of which are in Brazil, 27 in Sao Paulo. The Spix's macaw is listed as a critically endangered species in Brazil. An immersive exhibition looking at the history of catwalk presentations from early 20th couture Salon to modern-day fashion shows opens in London this week. Vogue, Inventing the Runway, features archive footage over the decades as well as narration from designers. The exhibition opens on Wednesday until April 26th. 8 art conservators have begun a painstaking process to remove a layer of varnish from Rembrandt's giant Night Watch masterpiece on Tuesday to reveal its original depth and color at the National Rijksmuseum Gallery in Amsterdam. In the first 5-year stage of work, the canvas was restretched. In the next stage, solvent-soaked tissue was applied to the paint surface to dissolve the varnish, revealing a removal of the yellowish tint. Time now for sport updates. India and South Africa are set to clash in the third T20I on Wednesday at SuperSport Park, with the series at 1-1. India's batting has been inconsistent, especially from the openers and senior players. The team is considering changes to the batting order. The bowling, particularly from Varun Chakravarti and Ravi Bishnoi, has been impressive. South Africa's batting also needs improvement from their senior players. The match is expected to be a close contest. Indian women's hockey team will open against Malaysia's Leong Jun Hao, with a potential showdown against 8th seed Anthony Ginting of Indonesia in the next round. Norway will miss the services of their captain Martin Odegaard for their Nations League matches against Slovenia and Kazakhstan, as the Arsenal midfielder needs some time to get fit after recovering from ankle injury. The 25-year-old came off the bench in added time during Arsenal's 1-0 defeat at Inter Milan in the Champions League last week, having had 2 months on the sidelines due to the injury which he had picked up on international duty. Odegaard then played the full 90 minutes of Arsenal's 1-1 draw at Chelsea in the Premier League on Sunday. After several examinations, and it was decided that Odegaard should skip the upcoming matches and return to London to continue his rehabilitation. Hosts Spain need to overcome an Swiatek-led Poland side if they are to avoid an early exit from the Billie Jean King Cup finals, which begin in Malaga on Wednesday. The 12 teams have assembled in Andalusia to battle for the title won last year for the first time by Canada. A change to the format means there is no room for error this time, with a straight knockout replacing the group phase followed by semi-finals and final that was used a year ago. Spain will be boosted by the availability of former world number 2 Paula Badosa, who has defied a potentially career-ending back injury to end the year, in fact, just outside the top 10. Largest ever performance of a Khmer 5-tone musical ensemble was recently organized in Vietnam. The traditional music form involves the unique musical instruments made from different materials. The performance featured 200 artisans, musicians and performers who played 20 sets of instruments across 5 different acts to establish the sound. That's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, and you can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.